Well, we have such an amazing treat for you because we are showcasing the beautiful, the wise, the awesome, and your very own Dr. Willow Brown in today's interview. And did you know that she is a Chinese medicine doctor and a Taoist sexuality expert? I bet you did. I bet you knew this. And one
I
of
hope you knew that by now.
If you're a fan of the Sex Reimagined podcast, I bet you
better
know
know
this.
that. Yeah.
Yes. And so one of the things that she's just brilliant with is she takes what her understanding is using these very different ancient wisdom approaches to take your pleasure pathways and to ignite them with your cellular body and to infuse all of that with sensuality and love. And as a result, people expand into greater health and wellness and vitality, and they live the life that they were meant to live with consciousness, being spiritually directed, and having a excitement and enthusiasm for love, pleasure, and life. And I'm so excited to dig in with her today. And Will, would you want to add anything to your introduction and to what
I
you do?
don't think so. That was well done. I mean, just enjoy the
Okay.
ride. You're going to love this episode. I did a great job.
You did,
and
a
Leah did a
fantastic
great job pulling good shit out of me.
Well, thank you.
We're
So
a great
everybody,
team.
you know what to do. Tune in, turn on, and fall in love with one of my favorite, if not my most favorite, biz BFF, Dr. Willow Brown.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
I know that there's, you have your ancient wisdom approach, which we're going to dive into, and also this whole idea of how the body and the organs and the glands are metabolizing our emotions, things like shame and the impact it has on the physical system. I'm so curious to dig into Dr. Willow Brown. Bow, chicka, bow, bow.
Yeah, let's dive into the shame tunnel. It's such a deep and dark tunnel, and it just feels absolutely awful when we're in it. And it's so easy to, sweep these things like shame and guilt and even sexual trauma, even if it's subtle, even if it's like just verbal, or something that didn't overtly happen to us, but maybe it's just coming from systemic culture. And it's so easy to just kind of put it all in the garage, as we say, put it in the basement, right?
That's
and just
right.
stuff it away and not pay attention to us and override and just get busy and distract ourselves with other things. But what I find is it makes us feel really fatigued and really depressed. And it actually causes a lot of physical health problems. Many of my clients often have a psychological, emotional, spiritual thing, but they often have a physical thing too. And so getting into the physicality of where that shame lives in their body so that we can actually extract the root of it, which 10 times out of 10, it comes down to I'm not worthy. I don't believe I'm worthy. Somewhere deep inside of myself, I don't believe I'm worthy. And, that's a very unfortunate systemic message that is pervading our culture. So getting into the physical body and the physical health of where that lives, I feel is the only way to really make changes that are going to last.
So can you share with us like one of your earliest memories of feeling shame or having that like experience of not being worthy and how you might have overcome it, how you resolved it?
It's such a good question because for more recent years, I was curious about shame and not knowing what it was. Like I felt like I had really overcome shame. Like I had become so immune to shame. I forgot about what it was. And I started asking people, this was maybe 10 years ago. And I started asking people, what's your experience of shame? What does it feel like in your body? What does it feel like for you? It's just so I could be reminded of what people who were coming to me were actually in the midst of. And then I just this last year, I had some of my own visceral feelings of it again. And it was just, fuck, this is a terrible feeling. It really does take you down. It's crazy. But I think my earliest memories are probably like teens is that I can remember. And I just hated my skin. I hated being in my skin. I hated my body. I hated the way that I looked. And I grew up in Southern California, in Ojai, California, where, very close to LA. And so there was this very strong message that you have to look a certain way, that you have to act a certain way, that you have to be a certain way in order to be of value, in order to be, liked in society.
Right.
And so that, girls in my high school, they were getting nose jobs and boob jobs and like changing their physical, like literally changing their physical appearance at 16 years old.
Yeah. Did you live also in an affluent sort of community where there was like a financial stuff that was also
I would
wrapped up
say
in all
kind
of
of
it?
like mid-range. Yeah, not
Okay.
extremely affluent, but some of the kids came from a lot of money and some of them didn't. Some of them had actors as parents and some of them
Okay.
were just kind of like middle of the road, and some are, had more financial hardship growing up. So wherever they landed kind of in that realm, there was a lot of pressure for
Yeah.
everyone to like
Yeah.
be beautiful. To be
Right.
beautiful. We're so close to Hollywood, it's just
Right.
be beautiful or else. And so I developed eating disorder. I was anorexic for many, many years, which totally fucked up my hormones, totally fucked up my
Really?
gut. I'm still recovering from all of that shit.
Wow.
And I think it really fucked up my skin too. So I had a really cystic acne. So there was a hereditary thing about that. It came from my mom's side of the family. A lot of my cousins and uncles and aunts and everyone had it. But then also, it was just my gut was so messed up because in Chinese medicine, the large intestine and the lungs are paired together under the metal element, and the lungs open to the skin. So each one of the yin organs, the lung being the yin organ in this situation, each one of the yin organs opens to one of your sense organs. So we sense sensation through our skin. So the lungs open to the skin, and the lungs also hold grief, right? And I was very depressed in high school, like suicidally depressed as well. So there was this really big kind of like heaviness around who I was, an expression of authentic self and authentic beingness was not even an option for me during those years because I didn't have authenticity. I didn't have autonomy. Like I didn't know what that was. I was so busy trying to fit into the mold of what was beautiful.
What did that like manifest into? Were you really shy? Were you quiet?
I was very shy.
Okay.
Yes, very, very shy, which also was shamed. That's another early memory. I think even before teens, I was a kid and I was shy. I was always the quiet observer, just like taking it in. And I didn't feel shy, but people put that label on me a lot. And so there was this, what's wrong with her? There's something wrong with her because she's shy, because she doesn't talk a lot, because she's quiet. Yeah. So there was that coming off of that. And then probably from that spiraling into, so that kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. So I got to figure this out, or I don't know what it is, but something. And then it went deeper and deeper. And then, you go through those fucking hormonal years as a teenager and it just all turns into a big shit show. and things manifest. They manifest in your physical body, like skin and hormonal imbalances. And then they manifest in your life later on. I believe all of that then led to the rape at 19. 19, I was still a teen.
Why do you think that? Yes.
Well, because I had such a low sense of self-worth. And so then who was I hanging out with? Like losers, right? And then I was getting into situations where Rufinol and alcohol and date rapes were happening. And so that's kind of how that whole spiral. And then I woke up, after that, I was like, fuck, I slapped myself upside the head and I said, it's time to wake up and turn this ship around. So that's when I got on the healing path and never looked back.
Okay, so I want to kind of go back up just a couple of steps. It's really interesting when you were making the correlation between the lungs and the liver and the skin. So then tie
lungs
in the hormonal piece. Lungs and large intestines. Okay, large intestines and lungs. And then how did that affect the hormonal aspect of what was going on?
Well, because I had that like low sense of self-esteem, not a real strong sense of autonomy, then I was spiraling into depression, that's lungs, and then I was not eating, right? I was really fucking up my
Okay.
gut. So my
Yes.
large intestine, where all of the good bacteria should live in your large intestine, that was getting all messed up. And you should have these layers of mucosal lining, 2 layers in the large intestine and 1 layer in the small intestine,
Okay.
and those get eroded with, not eating properly and not eating enough vegetables. And I mean, I spent years, I had a friend that I had an eating disorder with, and we were so sick. We would spend years of our lives where we would be like writing each other letters. What did you eat today? I ate 1 goldfish cracker, 1 square of cheese. Like, it was really, really bad.
Wow. So,
At one point, I got really sick too. It all happened on this evening where, God, it was so many firsts. I took ecstasy for the first time. I was 16 years old, took ecstasy for the first time, and experienced my very first date rape that night, which was very, very gray, where it was just like me saying no multiple times over until basically just got overrun, and then basically was like, okay, just let it
yeah,
happen.
right.
And I got salmonella poisoning. Now, I'd already been anorexic for years and years, got salmonella poisoning, and I could not keep a thing down. And the next day when I got home from Santa Barbara, I was so sick. Like, I was vomiting and shitting for 2 weeks straight. I had to go to the hospital, get IV fluids. I was so super thin. I could feel the calcaneus, my heel bone, on the ground. Like, there was no padding.
OMG.
There was no padding between my heel bone and the
Oh,
ground. So
little
I was
Willow.
so like disappearing into myself.
Wow, honey, that is just like my heart just shatters for that sweet 16-year-old Willow. Oh my God. What turmoil. That is just so deep. And look
I
at you now,
know.
sister.
God, I can feel the emotion. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you're such a beautiful testimony of reaching, having come from some of those really disappearing into yourself, and your ability to have like walked back into visibly being who you are now. And so I imagine that these really painful inflection points are a part of what steered you into the healing path. I know, certainly, I mean, I haven't quite heard those levels of your story yet, so thanks for sharing that. I know that a lot of people listening are feeling that viscerally, what you went through.
Yeah.
And I also got to hand it to you because I'm pretty sure you did ecstasy again after that experience. Like, pretty amazing. I think some people would be really scared. Did you have to go to the hospital? Right? You had to get IVs.
No. So basically it was this whole party night, and that whole thing happened, and then I went home. I went back to Ojai from Santa
Right.
Barbara, and within 24 hours I was just ragingly
Right.
sick. And
Probably due more to the salmonella poisoning than
yeah.
anything else.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. But I felt like I was being punished, right? Like, oh my God, I had
oh,
sex, and oh my God, I took ecstasy, and oh my God, I'm being punished by God, right? Because I grew up in the
wow.
Catholic upbringing. So it was like all
Oh,
that
that's like a
guilt.
double scoop of
Yeah.
shame right there.
Guilt and
Maybe triple.
shame. And yeah, it was high ice
Holy
cream
cow.
scoops of shame for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
wild time.
That was a wild, wild time. So
Yeah, so
how
I
did
got through
you,
that.
yeah, like, so did that friendship, because that's a pretty, dangerous kind of codependent relationship that you were in with your friend. Like,
Yeah.
how did you start to come out of the anorexia journey and
I
heal
started
that?
going to therapy, and I was adamant. I was like, there's no way therapy is going to heal me of this eating disorder. Like, I just hate eating. I hate food. I'm never going to love it. I'm never going to enjoy it. And I'm just like, okay, I will get to a point where I eat, but I'm not going to like it.
Wow.
So I started going to therapy, and the only saving grace was my therapist was in Santa Barbara, right? So I'd drive from Ojai to Santa Barbara and smoke cigarettes with the window down, feel like hot shit as a 16-year-old, like, and then I'd go to therapy, and then I'd go with my friends and do all the
things.
deprecating things that I was into. And so, but yeah, I think it did help. I probably saw that therapist for about a year. And then what really helped was I got out on my own. I got out of the family home. I was living on my own. As soon as I was 18, I was out of there. I was like, I gotta go. Yeah. So I went, I lived on my own, and I was going to the grocery store for myself, and I was making my own food. And then I was like, wow, this is so fun to like make my own food. And I was still vegetarian at the time. I remember just like slicing the tofu and making a really good sandwich, and like I just loved the experience,
the artistry,
of putting food together. Yeah. And that kind of really, that's when I really got over anorexia, I would say.
Okay. And that's probably where a lot of your knowledge for nutrition started to develop, and your journey of like understanding food as medicine.
Totally.
And how good it feels to eat healthy, nutritious food. And you could like feel that in your body. I bet that gave you a different relationship to your body.
It did. Absolutely. I got so into nutrition, and then I got into Chinese medicine school, and they have a whole different take on nutrition from Chinese medicine perspective. And I remember one year in Chinese medicine school, I was like, God, I just can't study TCM anymore. Traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. That's what most acupuncturists practice, although some practice different stuff as well. But okay. I was like, I can't study this anymore. I need something else. And I found this book, Julia Ross. OMG, Julia Ross. If you don't know who she is, she wrote The Mood Cure and The Diet Cure. So if you are suffering from any mood disorder,
why haven't you got me this book yet?
Get that fucking book. She talks about amino acid therapy. I mean, it is brilliant. I use it with a lot of my patients and clients. It's written into my 9-month program and everything. It's written into the cookbook that I wrote because it's so crucial. And amino acids come primarily from meat. And so we can get some of them from our vegetables, but like tyrosine and glutamine and what's the other one that anyway, those amino acids, we need them. And I was so deficient in them because I was vegetarian for so long. So vegetarianism kind of led to all the deficiencies. My brain was so deficient. I remember being in high school and like, I could not keep my eyes open. I was so exhausted. And then I would be up till 3 a.m. Like my cortisol, my chemistry was so fucked up. I wish I'd had me as a practitioner when I was a teenager, because my mom is a nurse, and God bless, she's an amazing woman and amazing caretaker. But Western medicine just had a different take. She's like, here, let's give you some more, antibiotics for your skin, which fucked up my gut even more. So gut is actually one of the most important things for our hormones. Like I think it's 60 to 80% of your hormones are created in your gut. So when the gut is healthy, everything else in the body is healthy because the endocrine system has more of a chance to be balanced. So all of that to say that when we start to work both sides of the same coin at the same time, like the physical body and then the emotional, spiritual state at the same time, we can heal exponentially and heal to a point where it sustains and we transform.
I think you've got such a unique perspective on this. And I really, what comes to mind is like the true artistry of holistic, right? Everything that a holistic approach really means, because if you're taking a look, like if you're feeling depressed, that being pressed down, there's usually like, if you bottom line it, it often comes down to a feeling of unworthiness, like we spoke about at the beginning of the hour. And then all the things that happen as a result of that, because like you, those teenage years, you're wrestling with so much. And I felt such self-loathing and depression. But unlike being the quiet one, I went and did the like, look at me dance. And instead of doing anorexia, I binge ate. So I had an eating disorder, but it was about binging. Right. And boy, I remember like praying at night going, God, just let me be bulimic. Let me be. It's like when you start praying for a different eating disorder, like there is something needs to be addressed. But
yeah, something deeper
feeling like I couldn't stop the eating was really scary because I knew how damaging the results of that were going to turn into. And then that's been the thing I've been wrestling with for my whole life. And what I think is really unique about what you came to learn is there's the mental wellness that has to be addressed. And here's the thing that most people miss that I think you have down, and that is the physical health. What do you need to feed the mind? What do you need to feed the body? What do you need to feed the soul to walk yourself into health? Yeah. So how do you look at, like, what's your holistic approach if someone were coming to you and you were noticing as they were telling you their story that this was really about guilt, fear, and shame that was sort of riddling their life?
So if someone's coming to me and they don't know what's going on and I see that, what's the question? Say it again.
So the question is, what's your holistic approach? Like, how do you look at the big picture when you're working with someone who, as you hear their story and you bottom line, what's the root? And you get to the roots, you're so good at that. And the root is really shame, worthlessness, fear.
So then how do I approach that holistically?
Yeah. How do you start to, create a curriculum of wellness for them?
Yeah, generally, like I'll look at I have people fill out a whole new patient intake form because even this, it's, 15-minute long it takes to fill this fucker out, like family history. And I got to know all the details because that lets me know too. Okay, if there's a history of colon cancer, okay, there's a propensity toward depression or skin stuff or da-da-da. If there's a propensity toward migraines, okay, that's gallbladder, liver. Or if they have a propensity toward sleeplessness, it could be kidney, it could be cortisol, it could be adrenals, or it could be something else, could be thyroid. So when I'm looking at their intake, I'm kind of like picking out 2 organ systems. Usually I like to start with 2. I don't like to do more than 2 at once. Okay. So what are the most important 2? And then when I work with them, I'll kind of gear the coaching in that direction. So if somebody has chronic migraines and they can't make decisions and they have hip pain, that's all gallbladder. So then I know to kind of point to that place inside of them. And they say the gallbladder, all of these organs in Chinese medicine have an archetype. I mean, Chinese medicine is fucking brilliant. It's a really, really amazing system. And so they all have an archetype. And the gallbladder's archetype is the wise judge. Because the gallbladder channel.
I love this shit. Yes.
And it's so fun.
It's so fun.
The gallbladder channel zigzags along the outside seam of the body. So it can see the yin side, which is the front side, and the yang side, which is the back. It can see both sides of the same coin. So they call it the wise judge. It can make decisions because it can see both sides of the coin. And so if somebody's struggling with gallbladder stuff, I'll sort of kind of like dig deeper with them and curate what is it about like being decisive? What is it about taking a stand for what's true for you in your life? What is it about having a purpose? Gallbladder pairs with the liver. So what is it about purpose? Looking through the eyes, liver opens to the eyes. So not just your physical eyes, but your third eye too. What's missing in your intuition? So, we're looking at this one organ system, which is held by an element, the element of wood. And then we can also look at, like, when we look at that element of wood, it's like, where are you not rooted? Where are you not rooted in your life? Where are you not rooted inside of yourself? And where are you not reaching for the light?
And then on top of that, there's a protocol, right? Of like nutrition or supplements or herbs or what's...
absolutely. So, I mean, anything from like a whole gallbladder cleanse to a liver cleanse to let's just get some milk thistle in your diet, or let's just get you eating bitter greens because that's good for your liver. A lot of times when I'm working with clients, like if they want the full Monty, I always kick them off with a 21-day or a 10-day cleanse because I like to wipe the slate clean so that anything I give them after that is going to work 10 times better. If I just start giving them a bunch of chaste tree and ashwagandha without cleaning that filter of the liver first, it's just those herbs are going to get wasted. Money's going to get wasted. So let's clean the slate first. Let's clear out the liver so that everything that you take after that really works better, including your food, including your meditations, including your breast rotations and your ovarian breathing and all these other practices that are part of the holistic approach to happy, healthy, amazing, thriving, sexually alive life.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so, I mean, it's so like complex, but really rich in complexity, you know, like it's really inspiring. You know, I was just working on, we published recently our episode on reimagining sex after menopause. And I think it was, I want to say it was episode 38.
38.
Yeah. And in the show notes, we'll have it be accurate with a link. And you should all listen to it because it's fascinating. Willow really shines in this episode. And it had me thinking, I was just talking to Matt the other night going, okay, I need to get that chaste tree and I need to get ashwagandha because menopause is around the corner. And, you know, Willow was really talking like as I'm in my 40s, start to get my adrenals plumpy and juicy because they're going to be doing the major overhaul with estrogen come after perimenopause. And so I was thinking about all that. Now I'm going to just ask for free doctor advice while we're on the line. Do I need to do a cleanse first? I kind of, Will's told me a number of times how many times I got to do a cleanse. And I used to do cleanses when I was in my 20s. But, you know, I'm a real baby when it comes to that stuff because I just want what I want when I want it. And I'm just haven't really.
Honey, the cleanse is, you could do a 10-day. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, okay, 21 day is not for you. Let's just do a 10-day. I'd rather you do a 10-day really, really well than a 21-day really sloppy, right? Yeah. 10 days. That's 1 week plus 3 more days. Not that hard.
You know what I need? I need like a girlfriend. We're all going to cleanse at the same time.
Yes. We'll do it with Maddie. And it tastes really good. You know, you get to do 2 delicious shakes a day. I mean, you can still be in your artistry and your food. And basically you're eating like a paleo kind of diet. So what are you cutting out? You're cutting out caffeine, dairy, and carbs. I mean, it's not that hard.
And monk fruit.
No, you can have monk fruit.
I can have monk fruit?
Yeah, you can have monk.
Okay, the world's looking up, people. But can I have cream?
No.
Can I have a cream that's like
you could have like a nut cream
and almond together or something?
Yeah, you could have a
my sister's got a good recipe for that.
Okay.
All right, well, back to thanks doctor for helping me get myself geared up because I do want those herbs to be effective. I don't want to just waste money on stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and it's spring right now. So now is a good time. Spring into summer is always a good time to cleanse. When it's really any time is a good time to cleanse. Don't buy that like you can only do it in the spring. Anytime is that you're motivated is a great time to do it. But it's nice to do when it's warmer because you are going to be doing smoothies. And so you know, just the coldness of smoothies and ice water. I know you love ice water, but it can really bog down digestion, digestive, gastric acid. So that is one of the reasons that it's nice to do cleanses in the spring and summer. It's good to do kind of like more bone broth stuff in the winter. But that also ties into spring, ties into liver gallbladder, which we were just on. And so one of the things that I love about my approach to this whole overall wellness and like not only bringing your sexuality online, but bringing your vitality online, bringing your physicality to its highest performance level, is that there's this thing called a moon cycle, and we all have water in our bodies, and we all know the moon pulls on the tides, it pulls on water, so it pulls on the ocean, but it also pulls on the blood, the synovial fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid, all of these fluids in our bodies, lymph fluid. And so there's this cycle that we all go through. And as women, we have a womb. So it's like we have an ocean in our bodies. And even if you've had a hysterectomy, you still have the energy of a womb in your body. If you're, if you're a womb owner, a vulva owner, not a woman, but someone who has a womb.
Yeah.
So this tide really gets pulled on much more strongly because of the womb. And so that's why women say, oh, my moon cycle, I have a moon cycle. But really, men have a moon cycle, children have a moon cycle, dogs, cats, anyone with fluids in their body has a moon cycle.
Okay,
So
interesting.
when we're looking at the spring phase of the moon cycle, which is the time of the moon waxing, so it's gone from its darkest time to now it's rising up toward the full moon. So it's rising, spring energy rising, yang energy rising. Great time for creativity. Estrogen levels are rising inside of you if you're in your fertility years.
Okay.
Let's go out and talk to people and get creative things going and plant seeds, you know?
Okay.
And so this whole paying attention to the lunar cycle and the way that your organ systems relate to it is my approach to transforming your life. It's called the Ancient Wisdom Approach, and it is a combination of the 4 phases of the moon cycle, which is very deep Celtic wisdom, and the 5 Chinese elements, so very deep Taoist wisdom. And it's a game changer for those who really take it on.
Yeah.
Those who really do the practice are like, oh my God, how come no one's ever done this shit taught me this shit before? And it's amazing.
I love it. I love it because I think we have created such a departure from our connectedness to nature. And I think one of the things that's so beautiful about this concept and this way of living is it puts you back into alignment with nature in and of itself. And you start to feel the nature that's inside of you. And so when I have a question about the whole moon cycle thing, now my understanding from a female identifying person with female organs is the phases of the moon, there's 4 of them within a month, or there's 4 seasons. So, springtime is about a week, right?
Yeah.
Now, is that true for all people or all animals, that it's a month-long thing? Okay.
Yeah. So each season is about a week, 5 to 7 days. So, all the months are a little bit different. And so when it's new moon time, that's the winter time. So then we're looking at kidney, bladder. So we're looking at like fear, inhibition, uncertainty, doubt, looking at those emotions.
Okay.
And then we move from winter into spring. Then that's liver, gallbladder. So then we're looking at anger, frustration, irritability, agitation. We're looking at those emotions. Each phase, each season has multiple levels and layers. So I'm just talking emotions right now. There's many, many more. And then
so like I think I'm in winter. I'm on my period. I had a couple tough days. Yeah, just like and
yes,
like angry.
Yeah. And so what's so interesting about that, like winter holds more of that deep, let's go in hibernation. And it's more kidney, which is more fear technically. But what's interesting about what you're experiencing with anger is probably you didn't clear very well in the fall phase. The fall phase comes before the winter. So fall is all about clearing, letting go. Things are dying. Things are falling away. So that's the most important of all of the phases is the clearing. Because if you don't let go, if you don't create the space, if you just keep everything piled on and you're still doing it all and you're still acting like, oh, I'm not paying attention to the fact that my period's on the way, then when winter comes, there's no space. There's no space for you to go into hibernation and feel into like, where am I having some self-doubt? Where do I want to like self-correct? And where do I want to come into more kindness with myself? So each one of these emotions has an antidote emotion. And then you move into, and then what's coming in from spring is that anger, right? It's like frustration, agitation. So your seasons got a little bit mixed together because.
Well, and ironically, when I'm afraid, I act angry.
Interesting.
It's a thing. It's like it's a deflection. It's a discomfort with the vulnerability that comes with fear.
Yeah.
So I feel angry when I'm afraid, and it's a knee-jerk reaction. And so it comes out with a lot of sting, but really it's because I'm feeling vulnerable.
Totally.
And so I had to like own up to that the other night. It was this thing. I felt like Matt was doing something that I interpreted as disapproval. And I was getting really angry about it and felt like it was really unjust, when really I was just looking at my wounds, were looking out at Matt and projecting and imagining that this was Matt's motivation, when really it was Matt's fear. Matt was just saying, I'm bringing this to your attention because I love you and I want to feel safe with our relationship, and that requires me to feel like you're taking care of yourself, right? So there's this whole big story without going into the story. And I had the wherewithal, as I was starting to get that sinking feeling of like hurt, to go, what if I didn't look at that through my wounded lens? Like, what if I looked at this through Matt's eyes?
Yeah.
And I could realize that what was really going on is I felt like he was avoiding connection by being irritated with me, when really he was just afraid. And so I acted angry. And so we had this whole thing. We sat in the hot tub and talked it out. And so I think it's interesting that, what I was feeling was fear, but I was covering up with anger. And then got to the place where I chose to be vulnerable. Right. And was still guarded, though. You still got that, like, are you going to receive this? Because I think so much of the time we defend those emotions when it's in relationship with other people.
Well, and also we're all coming off of a childhood where it was like, you should be this way. You should act that way. You should da 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 da. And, if you don't, you're going to be less loved. So there's this fear around being our full, authentic, true selves, if we even can access that. Like I couldn't for years, because we were modeled that it's not okay to be your full, authentic, true self. And so that therein lies the systemic shame.
So when someone isn't connected to that true, authentic part of themselves, especially around their sexuality, because that is another niche of yours, including hormones and all these other things that you're good at, this sexuality lens, how do you help people who are incongruent, right, with their authenticity and around their sexuality, and they don't know how to find themselves or figure out what that authenticity is? What's the starting point?
I think coming into breath is the first place. Like we have to learn how to breathe, because when we are incongruent, we are not breathing congruently.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so again, like, let's use the physical body. Let's use this side of the coin to get to that side of the coin. And when you can really, truly be authentic with your breath, and we both know how important breath is in taking yourself to higher sexual aroused states. So if you can really be authentic with like, wow, that's really the bottom of my exhale. Oh, how long can I hold that out? And get curious and then bring it up. What does it feel like? What does it feel like in the back of my throat? What does it feel like as it travels up through my Sushumna channel or my central column of light? What does it feel like when I hold my breath at the top? And really start to experience the authenticity of breath. Then we have a foundation. We have somewhere to jump off of, because the breath connects the spiritual and the physical.
Amen. Yeah. That's beautiful. And what a great answer, because there is this moment, like if you can just get with the beingness of who you are, taking breaths and being present to that breath moving throughout your body, then you get a moment of space.
Yes. And that's where true arousal comes from. Is from that spaciousness. And so many people come and they're like, I want to learn new tantric practices and positions and da 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 da. And it's like, okay, yeah, we can give you all that, but you're going to be spiritually bypassing. You're going to be overriding if you're not present with it. So breath breeds presence. When you have that authentic breath moving through your body, it breeds presence. And that presence is crucial for accessing those vulnerable places inside. You can't find the places of doubt and fear and shame inside of yourself if you're not present. Like if you're distracted, if you're thinking about other stuff, it's not going to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think also they're present. Those sensations are present in your body, but what a lot of us are doing is we are covering them up, staying busy, staying distracted, reaching for things that are going to change
alcohol,
the state. Yeah.
It's whatever.
And and we're like running around circles around ourselves, wondering, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? And just like, well, you gotta sit still
Just
for a
slow
minute.
down
Yeah,
and
yeah.
breathe. Yeah.
And
I mean, that's
breathe.
one of the reasons that I love Qigong so much, because it's a moving meditation.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of these 4 seasons as well. There's specific Qigong movements for winter, for spring, for summer, for fall. And they relate to each one of your organ systems and all of these different emotions. And they all have a sound and they all have a color. And they, like I said, it's many multi-layers. And so embodying that and knowing that wisdom, that means like if I'm sitting in traffic and I'm late for something and I'm frustrated and I, have to pee or whatever, and I'm just in an
late for an
agitated
appointment.
state.
Yeah.
I have a sound to make. I have breath and sound that I can go to immediately. I have color I can bring into a certain place in my body, an organ system or a gland, and shift the energy in 3 breaths or less.
I mean, it's miraculous, isn't it? I just think we need all these interventions, whether that's medication, whether that's reaching for a state change, whatever that may be, when it's so untested, the power of using the breath to get presence and to relieve yourself of the tension, and how much sound and breath is a vehicle for that. I think sometimes someone could maybe even be listening right now and go, wow, this seems like there's a lot to learn, or there's a lot to do if you're looking at, okay, I got to learn to meditate and I got to take herbs and I got to do a cleanse before I take the herbs and I got to think about the colors and, you get like kind of big. Oh, and then there's the seasons and the tides and the moon and oh shit, I mean, I find it exciting, but if for someone who might be feeling overwhelmed, how much time does someone need to invest to start to take steps towards having this kind of cleansing and taking a look at their lifestyle and wanting to have a more holistic path forward for their well-being?
I would say 2 hours a week is enough to make some pretty
2
radical
hours a
changes.
week?
Yeah.
That's easy peasy,
Yeah.
baby.
I mean, if you can't give yourself 2 hours a week, and it's not 2 hours full on in the middle of a Wednesday, right? It's
Split
like a
that
half
up
an
for
hour
7
here,
days.
15
Yeah.
minutes there. You're paying attention to what you're eating. You're doing a Qigong practice. You're doing a Taoist sexual practice. You're paying attention to the meridians when you're stretching. Like it's stuff that you're doing anyway. You're taking a shower, but you're doing it in a different way. A lot of it's stuff that you're doing anyway. So it's about integrating. But then there are specific practices that it's like, here's a half an hour practice, here's a 20-minute meditation. And so and I always like to think of those little pockets as like when you're really cleaning the countertops, you're like, I'm going to use the cleaner and the scrub brush and I'm really going to clean this countertop. And then in between, you're like, let me just wipe it down, wipe it down, wipe it down.
Okay.
So and it's the same with sexual practice, right? Like with my lover, we have these beautiful, like 7-hour tantric, magical sex magic practices together, right? And then the next day, every little touch, every little kiss, every little hold has a totally different meaning to it. And for that whole week, it's like every little text is like, it has a whole new level of meaning to it.
Yeah, and I think what also that signifies is you start to prioritize things differently. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think people hear, oh my God, 7 hours sex. A, would that even be fun? And B, that's a lot of time.
We didn't even have sex.
Oh,
we didn't even have intercourse. Yeah, we're just
God.
having too much fun with everything else.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's the thing is it's like to take away the what sex is, or to take away what you think meditation is, or to take away what these concepts of these things that feel hard or daunting, or like, yeah, I really wish I could start meditating, but I just can't sit down and quiet my mind. It's not about sitting down and quieting your mind. It's about sitting down.
Sometimes it's just about taking a walk and being present with what you're looking at and breathing.
It's about breathing
in nature and then looking at how beautiful, how green everything is, and taking a moment for gratitude. I mean, it can start with something that doesn't require sitting still.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet there's also, you may want to try sitting still because there's a lot of peace waiting for you there.
Yes,
But you
absolutely.
start
Or
where you're
try the
at.
moving meditations, if you don't, if you're not a sitter stiller. And that's one of the reasons I really love Qigong for women, because if you look at the predominance of meditation, it is ruled by the masculine. It's mostly men who are like, let's sit down and be still and
Right. It is a
breathe.
very masculine
And
pursuit.
so, and when I
Empty
started getting into
consciousness, please.
Tai Chi and Qigong, and even swimming for me is just a great meditation. It's like, oh, now I can like really feel into the spaciousness of non-duality, because I can move my body through it.
Yeah, because movement it feels especially good for yoni owners.
Yes,
There's
it does.
something that has
Sensual.
congruency to it. When we step into the flow, there's the feminine is waiting for us in that flow. And you'll
Yes,
start to
absolutely.
find, like, I find myself having to move my
Dancing
body
even.
in any
Yeah.
kind of like practice. If I'm giving a tantric session, if I'm teaching from the stage, even in this small little space I have in front of this camera, I still feel like, just gotta move her body. And yet I'm also someone who has such a strong masculine that it's very easy for me to get stuck in one spot. And I hunker down and I get really comfortable there. So it's a good reminder that moving meditation is available to all of us. And when you talk about like especially qigong for women, what I want to see is more qigong female teachers, because some of the qigong that I'm experienced with, it's a little masculine orientated, and I don't find it very pleasant as much. And that, but the juxtaposition of when I do it with you, it's so different. Why is it so different?
Yeah, well, I'm teaching from a more yin perspective, and I'm
Well, I
teaching from a
like it.
vulva owner's body. And, my first Qigong teacher was Lee Holden, and he teaches that way too. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
I'm excited to check out
go
Lee's
check his out. Yeah.
qigong, because I
Yeah.
definitely like your version
Yeah.
better than some of the stuff I've done with
You'll like
Montauk
his. Yeah, you'll like his better than Montauk's for sure.
Okay.
Montauk is definitely more yang, and he's Lee's primary teacher, but Lee
Right.
has
People
just
love him.
taken what he's learned and made it more digestible, made it more applicable for everyday people, which is so brilliant.
I mean, Master Chi is adorable. He'll make you giggle all day
He
long.
is. I'll just light you
So
up.
if someone wanted to learn Qigong from you, how would they start that process?
So they'd come into my 9-month program.
Okay.
So it's a bigger commitment because of those specific practices that are related to the glands and the endocrine organs for each phase of the month. And so that in that program, that 9-month program, it's a rebirth. It's a complete rebirth of every part of yourself, your physical, spiritual, emotional, psychological. And it's such a beautiful journey. And you really, really get the ancient wisdom approach in those first 3 months. So you're gestating, you're going through the first trimester and really making that medicine your own. And then the next 2 trimesters, you're learning about the endocrine system and how it relates to, like, how each gland relates to each chakra, and how that relates to psychological patterns, and how that relates to the way you protect yourself. And the way you protect yourself is the way you block yourself from what you really truly want. So
Right.
it's a powerful transformational program, and I just love watching women transform through it.
And it sounds like they also get to have a direct experience of looking at these phases of the moon each month and applying it to their living experience, and that to be supported in that process, to gain competency over 9 months, so that when you walk away from the program, like, you really got it in your system.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, many women don't walk away. It is a lifelong practice.
Right, of course.
And so they stay and they keep practicing.
What is that? When they stay,
going.
what does that mean? Does that mean they stay in a program, or is there an ongoing
They
program?
just keep going through the program. That a lot of them will go through it a second time.
Okay.
A lot of them will just keep coming to the group calls. And I also have a membership program right now that just launched. So that's also a good option for those who are not ready to commit to a 9-month program.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
some Qigong practice in there. Like there's one for the lungs and the large intestine, but you won't get the full Monty quite as perfectly laid
As
out.
in depth.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so two-part question. And that is, who's the right person for the 9-month program? And then who's the right person to start with the membership? And do you have to have prerequisites for either of those programs?
That's a really good question, Leah. They do not need to have prerequisites for either program. The Living Sexology is the 9-month program, and the Erotic Empowerment Circle is the membership program. And so, who I've noticed comes into the Living Sexology program, let's start there, is people who do really well in that program often have a foundation already. They already have a yoga practice, or they already understand the moon cycles to some degree, or they have a relationship with elemental wisdom. Maybe it's Ayurvedic elements, maybe it's not Chinese elements specifically, but they kind of are already in the flow of some kind of meditation practice. And so I think of them as like they're already kind of practitioners. And women who come into Living Sexology who actually are practitioners have some kind of practice, a cranial sacral practice, or an acupuncture practice or a massage practice. They do really, really well in this program because oftentimes they want to take it and teach it. They want to go teach it to their communities. So that's always really fun because I love to have this information spread around the world. And it's inspired some women to go to acupuncture school even. So it's really, really a great sort of overview of what Chinese medicine is inside of Living Sexology that you learn for a full 9 months. And when women come into this program, sometimes, I would say if a woman is struggling with gynecological issues, let's say painful periods, erratic or irregular periods, infertility issues, fibroids or PCOS or endometriosis, this is a great place for them to come in because then I can get a little bit more close with them and do more doctoring with them and more one-on-one around what's going on in their bodies. Also, women will come into this program if they're like, I haven't had sex in 5 years, or I've been with the same partner for 15 years and like, I just don't feel my libido. I don't feel attracted to them anymore. I don't know what to do with this. Or they might come in and say, I know I have this old trauma, this old sexual trauma that I haven't cleared yet. So all of those are really great reasons to come into Living Sexology because it's a deeper dive into healing yourself, right? It's going to be a rebirthing of yourself in a 9-month period. So it's really, it's for those who want to make a radical change in their life and do a huge shift in their life and are ready to commit on a bigger level. I always say 2 hours a week, at least, at minimum, to put into the Living Sexology practice where you are actually doing the Qigong, the yoga, yin and yang yoga practices, because there's different meridians that we need to stretch and understand and move energy through, and different sexual practices for each one of those 4 phases of the moon cycle. So you really get to know those in your body. You really get to embody them. And you really get to learn about your glandular system and how it relates to your chakra system and how that corresponds to your psyche. So it's really fun. It's an incredible program, very life transforming. And then women who come to the Erotic Empowerment Circle, they are maybe more like, okay, I just want to get my feet wet. I just want to try this on. I want to check out Dr. Willow. I want to see what she's about. I want to see what I can learn from her. And right when you come in, there's 23 different programs, not big programs, but 23 different courses for you to kind of start to digest and assimilate and look at. Like, for example, eliminate erotic suffering. Like, let's get the Eros out of suffering and into empowerment. So that's a huge piece of the program. And then there's other stuff in there like for heartbreak or loss, like how to overcome that deep loss and grief and heartbreak. There's stuff in there around how to draw sexual energy through your body. And then we meet in the Erotic Empowerment Circle. We meet twice a month. Same as Living Sexology, we meet live twice a month. And so that really gives me just the opportunity to get to know the people in these programs and then to curate for them specifically, what's going on for them. And I'm always inviting my members of both programs to send me an email. What's going on with you this week? Do you need some support in your relationship? Do you need some support in your body? Do you need some support around anything in your life? What is it? Let's see how we can pull in the wisdom of Taoism and Chinese medicine and your body, your organ systems in your body, to create more coherence, cohesiveness, and congruence in your life so that you can walk with more ease and more grace.
How great to have a Chinese doctor at your disposal to be able to kind of bring your life to the table and get monthly support. Not to mention all the questions that get answered as you're studying outside of the live calls.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what kind of, you said, so there's a live call, there's all these courses, and there was something else. It was, what was
lectures?
The lectures. So what are the lecture topics like?
So lectures could be anything from, the rundown on STDs these days to deep throating. So it's quite a range.
Fellatio, anyone?
Yeah. It's quite a range. And so it really just depends on kind of the questions that are coming in. So I'll often curate the lectures around what people are asking about.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. And that also gives me more information about what people are needing and wanting in as far as future programs.
And so how can people sign up for the membership?
It's on my website. Just go to drwillowbrown.com and you'll find it there. You can also look at the Living Sexology program, which is the 9-month program. And if that looks interesting to you, you'll probably want to book a call with me first to make sure that it's really going to be a right fit for you, because it's a good investment. And then, and then we chat it out and see where you fit.
Great. It'd be a great time to pick Dr. Willow's brain about some of your concerns regarding your sexuality or your health or your wholeness wellness regime, and what kind of protocols she might suggest for you. So, well, this has been so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, what a wealth of fascinating wisdom that is stored in this little adorable body.
Well, thank you, darling.
I know. Every time I hear you talk, I'm like, I got to sign up for that Living Sexology program. I'm like, Leah, what are you waiting for? Like, for one thing, you are, how old am I? I'm 44 as of this recording. I might be younger when you're listening to it. Who knows?
Probably definitely will be if you do my program.
and it's like, and now I think about menopause quite a bit, and going,
that's good.
Yes, I'm still on birth control. Yes, I probably need to clean up my diet. Yes, I need to do this. And it's like, especially after that menopause episode, it's really on my mind about wanting to prepare.
And you already have
about it.
Yeah,
I've got mood swing issues. I'm gonna be. I just know I'm gonna be one of those women that might have a difficult time. So I want to get ahead of it.
Start prepping now. Yeah. I mean, if you're in your early 40s, early to mid 40s, start thinking about menopause. And you have a good foundation. Like you eat fairly well. You eat a lot of whole foods, and you work out. You lift weights. Lifting weights is really important, actually, for heading into perimenopause. And so there's just all these different aspects. I mean, these bodies, they're a full-time job, and they should be. And we should enjoy taking care of them. So
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. My husband's 10 years older than me, and so he's feeling things faster than I am in terms of you get to that middle age piece and you start to go, here's the decline is happening. You start to feel it and see it. And we've been watching all this stuff on regenerative health, and there's some crazy people out there doing some crazy things. Totally. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to fucking live for forever. What do I get? That's my rebellious mind that goes, who cares? I want instant gratification. And
it's not about living forever. It's about having a great time for a long time.
Yes. And here's what Matt keeps on telling me. He goes, you're stealing from your future self.
Oh,
you're stealing from your future self.
Good one, Matt.
I'm like, I don't even know what to do about that. Okay. Because, all right. So I'm stealing from her. She's me. She's mine. I'll steal
I get to do whatever I want.
I'm like, that does not help the rebel in here. You got to come up with a better comeback than you're stealing from your future self. But he might be right. does make one pause.
Something to think about. I mean, yeah, when you got a man who's a decade older than you, he probably has some wisdom.
He
for
may
you,
know a
sister.
thing or
He
two.
might
This
know it.
smarty pants.
Plus, he's a wise man. So.
He is. He is a stinker, and he's a wise man. I like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the flip side. Lots
Ciao, ciao.
of love.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.